Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking to you about how to use this book to practice guitar. This is Progressive Steps to Syncopation for the Modern Drummer, or in this case, the Modern Jazz Guitarist. I just want to note that I'm not endorsed by this book and I don't sponsor this book. I have just used it as a really great creative tool. The first thing I want to do is clarify a few techniques that I'm going to be using in order to help you follow along. So first things first, the way I'm going to approach a lot of this is what's called hybrid picking. So I'm using a pick. And I'm using these three fingers. It's similar to the way classical guitarists use these three fingers, P, I, and A. But instead of using my thumb as P, I'm going to be using my index finger as P. So it'll look a little like this. So that's what's going to be called hybrid picking. And the reason I use that is because I like to go between finger picking, playing single notes, and strumming patterns in real time. It kind of gives a more piano vibe, or kind of sometimes like a harpy kind of thing. But in general, it kind of makes things easier to move around. I see a lot of guitar players who like play with a pick and then put down their pick and start playing with their fingers. And to me, that's kind of just like, not necessarily autopilot mode, but it's like, oh, now we're in picking zone. Now we're in finger picking zone. So I saw that and I kind of just wanted to develop something where I could, switch between the two effortlessly without having to do like extraneous movements. Not that I invented hybrid picking, because I certainly was not the first to do this. And I will certainly not be the last if you're watching this video. Anyway, if these kinds of things interest you, please subscribe and click the like button down there. You can turn on notifications to see whenever I put out a new video. I'm putting out videos every Monday so you can harbor in some of the free knowledge that I'm throwing out. Another thing that I would recommend you doing before starting this is be able to play what I call polyphonic scales. Now basically what I mean by that is taking a scale and be able to play multiple notes within the scale at the same time. There's a lot of exercises like or something else like this. Or even something where you're playing a scale and pedaling the root at the same time. So what I want to do is basically go through levels, and we're going to stick to the first 2 pages of this book and try to do some of these exercises with varying techniques. So if you don't have the book, that's okay. I'm going to have the music on the bottom of this screen, and you'll be able to follow along. I highly recommend getting this book. The link is in the description below if you want to order it. It's pretty cheap, and it's really an invaluable asset. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to page 4, and I'm going to go to exercise 1. So this was just quarter notes, pretty easy, but the way we're going to interpret it on the guitar is going to make things a little more interesting. So basically we can interpret this in a few different ways. We can interpret this as the top line is the guitar, and the bottom line is our foot, for example, just tapping the rhythms. So I'll show you an example of that. I'm going to use my foot tambourine so you can clearly hear where the beats are. I'm going to assign a chord progression. I'm going to do a 1, 6, 2, 5 in the key of E flat. So we have E flat major, C minor, F minor, and B flat 7. If any of these chords confuse you, you might want to check out my video on how to play shell voicings on the guitar. In that video, you'll find basically all you need to start playing these 7th chord voicings, and then you can follow along in this video. So now while tapping quarter notes, I'm going to play the first rhythm, which is also quarter notes. Simple enough. Let's go to another exercise. So on the same page, now I'm going to do exercise number 8. It's probably easy enough. We can also do on the next page, on page 5, we can do exercise number 10, where we now have beats 2 and 3, so we're no longer playing the down beats. So with this book, basically what we're doing is we're getting a bunch of different strumming patterns that we can use, and we're using our feet to keep us centered within a 4/4 grid. You can also take a lot of these rhythms and apply them to odd meters. For example, if we look at number 15 on page 5, we see basically a quarter note on beat 1 and a quarter note on beat 3, which is half notes. What if we were to put that in 7/4? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So if we take that rhythm and we place it in a bar of 7/4, it lines up every 2 bars now. If we take exercise 14, which is beats 2 and 4, and place it in 7, we get another cool result. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get an interesting combination of rhythms there that go over the bar line, and we can start getting into some basic level polyrhythmic playing. Now, instead of strumming, we can take some of these patterns and we can start finger picking them. So I'm going to go back to the first one where it's just quarter notes, and I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to assign 1 note per quarter note without repeating any notes. So for this, I'm going to start arpeggiating up from the root up. So that was me picking every note. We can also finger pick the note. So the way we would do that is I would use my pick for the first note, then my middle finger for the second note, my ring finger for the third note, and my pinky for the fourth note. Now, another thing we can do is that instead of our foot playing the bottom line, we can actually play both lines at once, because a guitar is a polyphonic instrument, meaning that we can play multiple notes at the same time. This is a great introduction to polyphony if you're unfamiliar with the subject. So let's start off with something simple. We're going to play a C major scale. The bottom note is just going to be a C, our lowest C on the guitar. And then the top notes are just going to be the notes in the scale. So let's take rhythm number 8 off of page 1, and let's play the scale up and down once until we get back to C. So that was simple enough. Now let's take this rhythm, and instead of having a pedal tone C at the bottom, let's actually move this up. We're going to go up the C major scale, and both lines are going to be moving at their own pace. That one requires a bit more concentration because now the lines are moving independently of each other. It's kind of what's called counterpoint. So you can use this book and all the varying rhythms in this book to kind of go through and find all the permutations. We're still in the first 2 pages and the first exercise, but later on in this book you get more advanced rhythms, including 16th note rhythm, triplet rhythm, syncopated rhythms, and all that cool stuff. Another thing we can do, which is a skill that I use a lot, is do the same thing, and the bottom note is going to be the bass note of the chord, and the top notes are going to be the rest of the chord. So I'm going to take the 1-6-2-5 progression we've been using. I'm going to do rhythm number 9, which is off of page 4 in this book. We can also introduce some more fast-moving chords, and then it gets a little more interesting. For example, let's take the turnaround of It Could Happen to You, where we now have 2 chords per bar. So this might be a little trickier because now we're not playing the same thing on the bass for 4 beats. So the final level of this would be to improvise using these rhythms here. I'm going to go back to exercise 10 on page 5, and now basically I'm going to do whatever I want within this rhythm. Now at first I recommend sticking within a key, so I'm going to stick within the key of E flat, and I might drift off a little bit, but the idea of sticking in the key is you're going to essentially be practicing the scale in a very creative way. If you're looking for other creative ways of playing the scale, check out my video on creative ways to practice the major scale. So now I'm going to do this and improvise. put a little bow tie on it, I decided to play some half notes at the end. But that's the idea. Then finally, one of the great things about this book is that at the end of every section, you have a 16-bar exercise of random variations of the rhythms in no specific order. So this was a good test for your sight reading. Now I'm going to take this exercise and do the same thing. I'm going to improvise 2 melodies using the rhythms that they're giving me. So those are some of the ways where you can incorporate using this book into your practice life. And for me, it's brought a great amount of value into my practicing. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, turn on the notifications. I'm posting videos every Monday at 3 p.m. Different kinds of instructional videos, gear reviews, playing videos, and stuff like that. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you really enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Ah! Ah! Ah!